Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel today. I'm your host Sanj, and in this video I wanted to show you how you can build an army of AI agents to basically run and manage your entire sales process. And what this agent does, or the system does, is that it will look at your inbox, it will see and separate emails from prospects, so anybody that books a meeting request with you, from the emails from clients, okay? And the way this works is that it will look up the client information inside of your CRM. For this example, I'm using Airtable, but you can plug this into any CRM. It will actually create an email response based on whatever the client is asking, and it will send an email response back to that client, and it's all completely automated. Okay. In terms of prospects, it will actually go find the prospect's details, so find the website or find a bit more information about them. It will actually scrape the website, and it will actually even find their LinkedIn profile. And then based on all these data sets, it will actually give you a profile and save all this data inside of your Airtable. Okay. And what this means is that you've got AI research that you can use to help you close that client on a sales call. Okay, so this is a really great automation. It uses multiple AI agents, which is something I wanted to build for a while. So strap yourselves in, grab a cup of coffee, and let's dive in and build this system. So this workflow has 6 requirements. The first one is we want to split the workflow into prospects versus clients. Okay, so in this situation, this scenario, I've set it up so that the first part of the flow will get the prospects and it can handle the prospects. So that's anybody that submits a meeting request inside of cow.com. And the second part of the flow is clients. So anybody that's already existing and working with you. And this is based off a search records inside of the CRM. Okay, so it already knows that it's in there based off the email address. And that will then determine which part of the flow they fall into. And I'll show you that in shortly, okay? Second part is we want to set up the Tavily API. So if you haven't used Tavily, it's basically like a search API, and you can use it to search whatever you want. The great thing about Tavily is that they give you like 1,000 credits for free, and one search is just one credit, so it's very generous. The third part is the third step is to scrape the website and the LinkedIn profile. Okay, so we have the name, the business name, and the email address. Based off that, we can find a bit more information about this person, and we'll use the AI agents to do that. Okay. The fourth step is to build a CRM inside of Airtable. Now I'm doing this because I don't use HubSpot or Pipedrive or Salesforce, because I think Airtable does a great job with CRMs. You can use it, you can automate it, and it works really well. And I'm a big fan of Airtable anyway. But you could plug in whatever CRM you have. The fifth step is to create business rates to Google Docs. So in this scenario, what I'm assuming is that the existing client will come back to me and they want additional services for XYZ, right? In this case, it could be graphic design or web design, right? And you should always be upselling to existing clients, because getting new clients is much harder than upselling to existing clients, right? Because they already have a foot in the door, they've already paid you, they already have a trust relationship with you. So it's much easier to kind of upsell them, right? And then the sixth step is we want to send the AI generated email. Okay, now before we do that, there is a human in the loop step, and NA10 allows us to do that, which means that it will send you the draft email first. If you're happy with it, you can approve it, at which point it will then send to the client. So as mentioned before, the workflow is split into 2 parts, and it uses 3 AI agents. Okay, so the email comes through and we have a watch emails trigger. If it's a prospect, it will go up to this part of the flow. Okay, and if it's a client, it will come to the bottom part of the flow. For the first part, if it's a prospect, it will go into the add prospect to CRM AI agent. Okay, and all that does is just use the OpenAI agent, and it will just add them to our existing database or CRM. And then the first node is a HTTP request, and what this does is this will find the website, okay? And it will basically scrape the website as well, which is the next step here. So it'll find the website and it'll scrape the website. Now you could avoid this, and you could just update the form on cow.com or calendly.com and just ask them for the website. What I found is that if you give them a lot more options when they're signing up, they're less likely to not sign up. Right? Does that make sense? So the conversion rate of people actually booking a meeting with you will go down the more questions you ask, the more input that you require from prospects, especially from prospects, because they don't know you, right? And they don't want to waste their time. So the first node here is going to find the website. The second one is going to scrape the website, and then once it scrapes it, it basically generates HTML, right? Which is not good to us. So what I've done is I've added a markdown node here, which will then turn into text that we can manipulate later. Okay. And based off that, we're going to use this information to find their LinkedIn profile. Now you can use it to find the business profile or the actual individual's profile. I think the individual's scraping and finding the individual's profile is much better, because then you can, people buy from people. We don't buy from organizations, right? They might work with me, but ultimately, if a client, signs the contract, it's because I've jumped on a call and closed it with them. Okay, so these two nodes here will basically use Tavily, and I'll show you how to set that up. And then the last agent here, this is a summary agent. So it basically takes the everything that's found here and it'll basically summarize it, and I'll basically update the CRM. Okay, so if I go into Airtable, this is what the CRM looks like. We've got prospect name, email address, website URL, LinkedIn URL, status, which is just new lead. You can put a lot more statuses in here, saying closed, won, lost, etc. To make it look more like a CRM, I've just kept it as new lead, just to keep it simple. Prospect notes, so this is again going to be based on the interactions with the AI agents. And then this is prospect summary. So this has all been written by my agent, the AI agent. Okay, and obviously I've used Jeff Bezos as an example here. So that's the first part of the flow. The second part of the flow is if they're a client, right? Now, if they're a client, then they should already exist in your CRM. Okay, so I'll use the Jeff Bezos example again for this. And it basically does a search on the email address. Okay, so if their clients are using the same email address, this part of the flow will then trigger. It will then search the records inside of Airtable to make sure that that person is a client. And then, does the email exist? All right, we have to have the same email address. If it exists, then it will move on to the next part of the flow. If it fails, there's no email address, it will just stop. It will just stop the automation. Okay. Once it's true, which it should be, because your email, your clients should have the same email address, and that email address should be reflected in your CRM. Then it goes into this email agent here. Okay. And what this does is it will basically search the records. It'll update the notes if there's anything new that's come through. So if there's any new information about our client, it will then update the nodes. The notes, prospect notes column here, okay, and only update it. It's not going to overwrite anything, and based on new information, okay. Then it will get the rates. So basically, this is from a Google Docs, and I've just created this. It's just fictitious. This is not my pricing or anything like that. I've just created something quickly to use as an example on this demo, right? So we've got graphic design. We've got marketing materials, web and digital, packaging, design, retainers, and bundles. Okay, so if they ask any of these kind of questions, then the AI agent can basically formulate a response in the email. Now, you can add as much data in here or content in here as you want, right? So you can add your entire agency services, and you should, but definitely have everything that the AI agent can pull from a knowledge base, and then answer every type of query from clients that you can possibly think of, right? You can make this as big as or small as you want. So it's going to use this. It's going to use a knowledge base to basically then formulate a response, which is the human in the loop step here. So this is going to send and wait, and it's sending it to myself, right? I'm sending it to myself because I want to basically review the email first, right, before it gets sent over to the client. Okay. Once I'm happy with it, I can approve it, and I'll show you that in the live demo. There's another switch here which will basically send or ignore. Okay. If it's ignore, then it will just stop. There's nothing more to the flow. If it's send, it will then send an email from the same Gmail. Okay. So let's go ahead and build this thing. So before I start the live build, let's just test this puppy. Okay. So the first thing I'm gonna do is head over to Cal, and you can use Calendly as well if you wanted to. Just set up a calendar, and I'm just gonna create a fake meeting with Jeff Bezos again. I'm using my email address. I can show you, right? I can show you what happens inside the mailbox as well. The business name is going to be Amazon, and how can we help you, right? Now, this is probably the most simplest way you can capture prospects. I found that if you ask too many questions, like how many employees do you have in your business, and what is your turnover, that kind of stuff, right? Which is very useful information, by the way, and it really helps me to nail my service offerings, right? Like in terms of how I price the packages. But what I found is that the conversion rate for these signups is much lower. You're better off getting a minimum information and then converting them on the sales call, right? Which is what I think is a better solution long term, because it's going to help you sign a lot more clients. Okay. So how can you help you? Let's head over to the rate card. So let's just grab the website mockup as an example. Okay. So I'm going to say I need a new website mockup to be done in 4 weeks. Jeff is very generous. Okay, he's giving us 4 weeks for a mockup, which is great. So let's just confirm that. Wait for that to send the email inside of my inbox. Once that's done, we can then go back to the automation, because now I should have the scheduled email confirmation in my mailbox, in my Gmail. So we can then test the workflow. Okay, so if this has worked, it's going to go to the top part of the flow, which it has, because this is prospects, right? So it's added the prospect into the CRM. It's found the website, which is obviously Amazon.com. It's scraped the website. It's converted the HTML into text. It's found that LinkedIn. And then it's gone into the summary agent, which is then basically given us a summary, and then it should have updated the CRM if it's worked. Okay, so let's head over back to the Airtable here, and you can see it's added another row here, which basically it's given us a few interesting pieces of information. Okay, so the LinkedIn URL, which has secured, which is Jeff Bezos, which is what I would expect it to be. This is now set it up as a new lead, right, which is what it is. Then inside of here, it's a new website mockup to be done in 4 weeks, right? So that's the AI agent taking all that information from the email, right? And then the prospect summary, I mean, this is just something you would use on a sales call, right? So if I was to jump on a call with Jeff to discuss the website mockup, I would actually use this as part of my notes, right? And you can tell the AI agent to do whatever you want in the prompt, right? This is just a kind of prospect summary, just to give you an idea of how this works. So now I can test the second part of the automation. And for that to work, you have to make sure that the email address is saved inside of Airtable or your CRM, okay? And you can see that I've already got one here, which is another email address that I use. So if I head over to that inbox, I'm gonna send one to digitalikugai@gmail.com, okay? Because this would be my email address that the clients email me on. And this is for the most part the email address that I use for clients, okay? So let's just go over here. We're gonna send an email to myself just to show you. I need a website mockup. Actually, let's just do something else. Let's just say, how much do you charge for social media graphics? Social media graphics. Hey Sanj, I need some new social media graphics. Please send over your rate card. Thanks, Jeff. It might not pick up the Jeff because my name in this email address is also Sanj, so let's see. But I'm gonna send that over. So that's been sent. So now let's test this automation again. If it's worked, it's gonna go to this part of the flow, which is the client flow, right? So yeah, let's test it. So it's worked. It's now searching the CRM. Does the email address exist? Yes, it does. So now it's going to go into the email agent. It's going to look at everything that we have. It's going to get the rates from this Google Sheets here, or Google Docs even. Okay, and then now it's at the human in the loop step. Okay, so what this means is I need to go to the Digital Ikugai Gmail, which should have an email address in here. Okay, so let me just go inside of here. Let's see if it's here. So this is it, the response draft. This is from NA10. And you can see here, this is the website mockup, body, hi Sanj. And this is because that's my name on the test email address, okay? Thanks for reaching out. I see that you're interested in the website mockup. Our rates are for our homepage, mockup range from etc. etc. Please let me know about your requirements and we can create a custom proposal that fits your needs. Okay, so it looks like it's picked up the next website mockup, not the social media. That's fine. It will just pick up whatever it comes into the mailbox first, right? And so the most important thing I want to show you here is the content of the email, okay? And the fact that you can actually approve and decline it, right? If you're not happy with this email, then you can decline it and you can go back into the prompt and change it, right? I'm going to approve it, and then you'll see that it's basically going to send. So now it's sent, and then it's going to finish the rest of the automation and then basically send the email address, okay? So if I go inside of here into the mailbox, the Cybernetic Studio mailbox, you can see here, this is what it's sent, right? And then obviously you'd fill in the blanks based on your company. You can put in a signature here, you can put in other bits and pieces here. You could also get rid of this sent automatically via with na10.com. Although I think it's pretty cool to show them that, because you could show them that you've done the entire, the the entire process with AI, and you can also automate this, saying that this email will send automatically using Sanj's AI agents or something like that, right? It's going to help you close the deals a lot faster when they see it in action, because clients don't really care about AI, certainly in my experience, right? They just want to see how it works in their business. That's all they care about is, what can this system do for me? What can this agency or what can Sanj do for me? And that's all they care about, okay? So let's go ahead and build this puppy. Start with a new workflow. Remember to give it a name and save it. So the first node is going to be Gmail, because we're watching for emails. So bring up the Gmail node, and then on message receive is a trigger, and then just connect it up to your credentials. So I'm using digitalikugai@gmail.com. If you're not sure how to do that, click on this. It's just an OAuth connection, right? So you can just basically sign in with a Gmail, give it all the permissions that you see. I just checked every single box, connect. Once it's connected, it'll be green like this, and you're good to go. Okay, also give it a name. So I've given it a name for this particular inbox, okay? For the poll times, you can set it up to any of these options, or you can give it a custom. I've set it for a minute, which is more than enough. And then obviously the event is message received, but we want to turn simplify off, okay? And the reason for that is because we need more data. Simplify is too simplified, right? It's not going to give us the email body, subject line, and we need the email body because that's what we're going to plug into the AI agent, which will then give us the summaries, and then it will obviously create the response emails as well. Okay, so this one I called watch email. Okay, and so that's the first node. Okay, the second one is a switch, because we have two types of emails, right? The first one is from a client, second one is from a prospect. Okay, so if I go into the original, you can see here, if I click inside of here, you can see how it's set up. Okay, so this is a let me show you why we want to turn simplify off, okay? Because it gives you all this information from the watch emails node, okay? A lot of information here. A lot of it is metadata that's kind of useless to us, which is why most people do turn it off or turn it on, simplification. But we're not going to have things like the text, stuff like this, okay? Or the subject or anything like that, right? So the value one is the from, which is this one here. If you don't know where it is, just type it from here. I'll do a search, and it'll bring up this. Is this basically this dynamic field? Okay, so I'm gonna copy this, paste that here. Okay, and then it's gonna be contains, and then we put hello at cal.com. Okay, because that means that it's an email from the calendar. Okay, if you're using Calendly, it'll be notifications at calendly.com. Okay, and that's just basically a trigger to let this switch know where to go into the next part of the flow. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this, and it contains, not equals to. So change this to contains, this one here, and then we're gonna do that, and then just rename the output to prospect or lead. Right, so this will then move over to another part. Okay. I'm going to rename this to prospect or client. Okay, and there's just one more condition we need. So if I go down to the original, it's this one here. It's the same field, but this time if it doesn't contain hello at cal.com, then it's generally going to be a client. Okay, so let's just copy this. Let's add another routing rule. Call it this, and then we'll change this to contains, does not contain even, sorry, does not contain, and I just copy this. It's the same email address, and then we'll rename the output to client, and that's it. Remember the test step, and you're good to go. So we've got two routes here, right? Prospect and client. So let's start with the first part. So I'll build up the prospect part of the automation, which is the CRM agent. Okay, so let's add an AI agent. Okay, I'm just going to move this up a bit so I can fit the rest of it in. So let's just go up here. Okay, and then we just need a chat model, and I'm going to use OpenAI for this because that's what I always use, and then just line it up to make it look nice. And then if we go back to the original, we're going to need a structured parser, right? So if I go inside of here, it's going to grab all this, right? So let's just call this one, how can I help you, right? before I put in the prompt. Okay, so get this out. So basically we want the AI agent to basically add all this information, right? Pass the information so we can use it, and we can use it later downstream, right? So we need a structured parser. So if I go back into the original here, you're gonna need to turn this on, come back out, and then you got a structured parser option, and it's just a structured parser. And then I'm just gonna get rid of this, paste that in here. And this is just examples, right? It's not what, the examples like here, tester, example at email.com, gmail.com, example, test. The AI is going to fill all the blanks in for us, okay? So we just move that here. And then for the AI agent, let me just go inside of here to show you what that's doing. So that's getting the text from the previous node, okay? Which is the prospect or client. So let's just grab this. Okay, I'm going to put that inside of here. I'm going to define it. Let's change it to expression. Right, I'm going to call this one add prospect to CRM. Okay, let's rename that. And then I just want to grab the system prompt. Okay, so the system message is this here. So I'll bring it up. So you will be provided with the body of an email for a new meeting booking. Please extract the following data points: name, email, company name, and the reason for reaching out. Return these data points in JSON format as individual variables. Because we're asking for individual variables, that's why we need the structured parser, right? The output parser, we've got to turn it on, because then we can use those variables later. Only include the variables, no explanations or summaries, right? I just want to keep it simple. Ignore the organizer's details, focus only on the guest, right? Copy this, let's head over back to this, and then we want to go to option, system message, and then just paste that in here. Okay, and then test a step and you're good to go. Okay, make sure you've got the structured parser and then the chat OpenAI model connected before you test it, otherwise it's not going to work. And make sure the required specific output format is connected, okay? And then the next thing we want to do is we want to use the information that we have, and then we're going to find the website. Okay, so let me just go inside of here to show you what that is. This is a post search, and it uses the API from Tavily, which is a really great, really cheap, they give you 10,000 free credits to test. So let's just go over here. We're going to add a HTTP request. Okay, it's a post, right? And we're going to use this. This is the base, and then this is the endpoint. The endpoint is / search. Okay, so let's just make sure that's selected to post. And if you want more information, just head over to Tavily's API documentations. Okay, so if you go to docs.tavily.com, the endpoint we're using is search, and it gives you a bit more information about what you need for this. Okay, and to get your API key, you just go into Tavily, just sign up for a free account. I think you can use your Gmail to sign in. I think that's what I've done, which is why it's got my picture here. And you'll see the API key in the homepage. Make sure you copy this because you're going to need it inside of this. Okay, so we've got the headers, so you can see the authorization. Here's the value, the API string, and then we need some JSON here. Okay, so first things first, let's just grab the authorization. Remember, it's capitalized, and spell it exactly how you spell it, which is the American way of spelling authorization. Okay, this is very important. So we're going to use JSON. Actually, what I use? No, sorry, we're going to define it below. And then the first one is the authorization. The second one is the API key, which is the value, and you get that from inside of your Tavily. Okay, and then we're going to send some body. Okay, so make sure you check this. It's JSON, the body type. I'm going to use specific JSON. Okay, so let's head over here. We're going to select JSON. We're not going to use this. We're going to use specific JSON. And then for the JSON code, I'll just copy it from here and explain what this means. So this is just code that we need from Tavily to trigger the search. Okay, these are their parameters. So if I copy that, go back into here, open this. Actually, let me change this to expression first. Open this, and then if I save that, so basically a query, you can put anything in here, right? But I've taken it out and I've put in the business name from the previous node. Okay, because I have that, I have the information because the AI agent has extracted all that, right? So this is the dynamic variable, and then for everything else I've left it as the default. Again, if you want more information, just head over to Tavily API documentation, and you can see it here. This is the data. the JSON query, the query string, right? And I'm literally just taking it out from here. Okay, and then let's just call this one find website, and then we're good. Okay, so next one after this is going to be the scrape website. So we have the results, right, which is the URL from the find website node. Okay, so we have the website. Now we're going to take that result and then we're going to just use a get. We don't need any headers or bodies because we're just scraping information we already have inside of NA10. So let's just get this and let's just add this here. Just going to HTTP request. Remember to get, and then just paste that in here. Make sure it's green, which means this works. If I go back into the original, it's asking me to run the previous node because I've only ran the bottom half, right? But if it's green, it means it's worked, okay? And then we're gonna call this one scrape website, rename, and we're good. Remember to test it and save it, okay? So now we have the website, we've scraped the website. What do we need to do next? Let me show you. So the website scrape is going to be HTML, right? Which is not good to us. We can't read. It's hard to read. It's kind of machine code, machine language. It's designed for machine learning, basically, right? So I want to turn it into something that's usable, which is text. So I'm going to turn it into Markdown, okay? So I'm going to get the data from the previous node, which is just JSON.data, and then we're going to turn it into Markdown. Not this one, sorry. I need to add one. So let's add Markdown. So there is a node in here, so it converts data between Markdown and HTML. So with this one, we're going to do HTML to Markdown, or you could do Markdown to HTML. And then remember, we want to change this to expression. I want to get the data. Okay, so let's change this to expression, and we're just going to paste this in here. Not this one. This one HTML to Markdown is this one here. So we'll paste it here. And then everything else stays the same, so we're just going to rename this to HTML to text. Remember to test it and save it. Okay, so now we have the HTML to text. What do we need to do next? So next thing we can do is, with that information, we can find their LinkedIn. So if I go inside of this HTTP request, we're going to use another Tably search. Okay, but I'm going to show you the parameters. Okay, so I'm going to grab this, the JSON parameters. Let's call up another HTTP request. It's now a post. Okay, and then we're going to need a few things from here. So the first thing we're going to need is the header, which is authorization and the API key. So let's grab that first. So remember, it's the American spelling of authorization. And make sure you spell it correctly with the capitalization, otherwise it's not going to work. Paste in the value here. And then for the body, I'm just going to turn this on. I'm going to grab, it's JSON and it's using JSON. I'm just going to grab this code here. Okay, so again, it's the same search code, the parameter search parameters from inside Tably. I haven't made this up, I'm taking this from Tably. And then send body, we're going to need JSON. We don't want this, we want to use JSON. Change this expression, so I'm going to bring up a bigger window here. And then we're getting the output name from the ad prospects to the CRM node from the AI agent. Okay, everything else is the same. And then this is the LinkedIn profile email, the LinkedIn profile that we're going to use later to basically create this project, the prospect summary, the notes, and we're also going to save that into Airtable. Okay, and then this one is, we're going to rename this one to find LinkedIn, and we're good to go to the next step. Okay, so now the next step is going to be a summary AI agent. Okay, so what does that do? So let's click inside of here. So basically, this is going to take the summary. The prompt is going to, basically the LinkedIn summary is going to be a prompt from the answer from the previous node. Okay, so it's coming from LinkedIn and it's coming from the website. Okay, that's what we have. So you can see a website summary, the LinkedIn summary, and then there's a prompt that will show you what that does. So let me just grab this first and I'll show you what the prompt does. I'm going to define it below. These are the modules, the dynamic variables. Okay, and then we're just going to call this one summary agent. And again, you can call it whatever you want, right? Doesn't really matter. Summary agent, we don't need any specific outputs. We're going to put in a system message here, and I'm going to grab it from the original and show you what I put in there. Okay, so let's open this up, grab this, and then just change this to this so I can show you a bigger pop-up. Get rid of this and put it in here. So the system message is, and this is the prompt, right, for the AI agent. So you will receive a LinkedIn summary and a full website in plain text for a prospect. Your task is to review both pieces of information and create a summary of the lead and the company. Only output the summary in plain text. Save the new records into the Airtable tool called Update CRM. Okay, so that's what I've called it. Whatever you decide to call the node, if it's Airtable, if it's Notion, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? You just gotta make sure that you reference it in the system message. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Did I copy this? Let me just copy this. Oh, this is the one, so that's fine. And then this is what I'm building, so that's fine. And then we need a chat model. So again, that's going to be OpenAI. Chat model, 4 minutes is completely fine for this. Let's save this here. And then for the tool, I'm going to use Airtable. So if I go inside of the build, the original one, let me just show you what's inside of here. So let me just wait for this to open. So make sure you can create a token access token to your Airtable. Tool description is automatic, source is record, operations create, and then you just want to reference this table. Okay, so I've created inside of Automation Kings an email prospects table to show you. Okay, that's the one that we're going to reference. So let's just grab that, the Automation Kings, and then it's called email prospects. Okay, and then we're going to map it manually. We're going to map each column manually. Okay, so we want to create, not get. So let's just change this to create and then map each column manually. So if it's worked, it's pulled in all the correct fields here, which would correspond to the fields inside of your table in Airtable. And then you just grab the fields, you just map it, right? So let's just copy this one. So that's coming from the prospect name inside of the add prospect to CRM AI agent, right? And then for the email address, you just grab the same one. So this one is from the same node, but this time we're going to grab the email address. Okay, change that to expression. And then for the website URL, we're going to use the same, but this time we're going to use the find website node, because that's the point we get the website, right, when we're using a tably search to find it. So change it to expression. And then for the LinkedIn URL, it's the same again, but now we're going to do the find LinkedIn, find website node, right? The answer from the previous node. Okay, so if we have the find website, we have the website URL, which is from find website. The LinkedIn URL will come from the LinkedIn. If I come out of here, it will come from this find LinkedIn node. Okay, so you're referencing basically the URL that comes from here. So let me just grab this. Just grab this dynamic field, put that here. Status is now a new lead because that's the status that I have. Okay, and then the last bit, the prospect notes, is going to come from the add prospect to CRM agent. Okay, so let's just update that one. And then for the last one, the prospect summary, that's coming from this AI agent, the summary agent. Okay, so I'm just going to let the model define this parameter. Okay, that's what that means. So if you remember, if I come out of this, we'll go to the original. It's coming from the summary agent is creating the summary, right? So for me to map that field, I need to just define it automatically using the AI, right? And that's basically it. So this is done. And then this one, I think I renamed it to Update CRM. And this is the step that will basically create all this inside of Airtable or any CRM that you decide to use. Okay, and then remember to tidy it up. And you can use sticky notes and make it a little bit more professional looking, especially if you're going to sell this kind of system to prospective clients, right? Because once they see this in action, this does all the heavy lifting. Trust me, I've done a lot of sales calls. Once they see this, they're like, wow, okay, where do I sign up? Send me a contract. Okay, so the first part is done. Let's move on to the second part, which is the client step of the automation. So now the second part of the flow is from the switch which says client, and the first module you need is the Airtable module. So let me just grab that, and we're going to do a search. Okay, so this one's search records, and all we're going to do is just search it. Right, we're just doing a lookup inside of the CRM/database just to make sure that the client exists, and that's all we need from there. Okay, so I'm just going to call this one search records. Search record, doesn't really matter. And if I go into the original, I'll show you how that's set up. Okay, so obviously you connect it to the correct base, the correct table, and that's it. There's not really much else in there. It's just a lookup, right? So if I go back to this one, I'm gonna basically select the correct base. I don't want to do that. Correct base, and then select the correct table. Make sure you test it, and when you're happy with it, just line it up as well. Okay, so that one's done, and the next thing you want to do is you want to add an if. Okay, so if I go inside of here, this is basically does the email exist, right? And what this does is this will take from the previous node, which is the prospect or client node, the items JSON headers. Okay, so it's basically the from. If I do a search, you'll see it. I mean, you can take it from watch emails as well, but I generally just do it from the previous node to avoid any errors, right? And so it's going to be from the headers from. So it's, we find the correct one. It's this one here, headers. Okay, and then the one you want is this one here, from. So if the headers from this node contains the same email address from the CRM database, then you move on to the next step. That's basically all it's saying. Okay, so I'm just gonna grab this because I've ran it here and it's green. You can see it's working. Just open up an if, and just paste that in here. Change it to expression, and remember the condition is contains, and you want to take the email address, and this is from the Airtable. We're just doing like a conditional lookup, right? So we'll change this to contains, change that, and then we just rename this to does email exist. Okay, and that's about it. That's all you need to do for these two steps. Okay, so now you've got a true or false statement, which is the same as the original. So if I zoom in, I've got a true, and only if the email is true, as in the sender's from email address is the same and matches the CRM, then we'll move on to the next part of the automation. If it doesn't, then just stop the flow. We don't need to do anything else. Okay, so from this I'm gonna attach the AI agent. So let's get everything we need from here. So this is the email reply agent, and for this we're going to use the email received from the prospect or client node, and it's just a text. Okay, so it's this here, it's this node here, this field here, sorry, it's this one here, text, right? And so this is the body of the email, right? And this is what we need for the email agent to basically read and create a response. This is also why I needed to turn off simplifying the format inside of the watched emails trigger, because you won't get any of these fields, right? It's a very basic output. And this has to be from the same value. So it's a text receive and from the same email address, right? We just want to make sure. Okay, and then we just copy that. So let's just change this to define below. Go to fixed, open this. I remember when it's green, it means it's worked. And then this one, I'll call this one the email response agent, or email reply agent, doesn't really matter. And then the other thing I want to do is I need to get a system prompt. Okay, so the required specific output format is going to be turned on, because we're going to need the email body and we're going to need the subject line. Okay, that's why we need the parser as well. So I'll show you what the code looks like, but this is the prompt. So you are a smart lead assistant that updates client notes and drafts replies to incoming emails. So when an email arrives, first check the Airtable base, which is search records. And again, this is referencing whatever you're using. If it's Airtable, just make sure that it matches and is consistent with the name of the node. If it's Notion or anything else, then just remember to make it consistent, okay? And review the current prospect node. So this is the field, the column inside of my Airtable for that lead. Then update the notes by appending a brief summary of what the lead said in their email. If you do this, there's no need to output anything. Next, use your provided Gmail docs, get rates, which is the name of the Google Docs rate card, to determine if you can draft a relevant reply. If appropriate, generate a suggested subject line and email. Only do this when you believe a helpful reply can be constructed based on the Google Docs, okay? So we're giving very specific instructions, and this is the key to getting the best output, right? Just be very specific. So I'm gonna open this up so you can see it and paste this here, and we're good to go there. Yeah, that's it. So we've got the chat model, the memory, and the tools. So let's just come out of this. So now we're going to need a couple of things. We obviously need a language model, and that's always going to be OpenAI for me because I'm very happy with the output, and 4 mini is absolutely fine for this. If you want to spend a bit more tokens and you want to go, live into production, definitely try one of the latest models with ChatGPT just to see, split test it to see if you're getting a better response. Okay. That's the first thing. Then the next thing we want is, if I come out of this, I'll show you because I have it here. So the first thing we have is a chat model. Next one, we'll search the records, update the notes, which is Airtable, and then get the rates and then structure output. So I'm going to do a search first, right? And it's the same table. So let's bring that up. Also memory, no, I don't need memory. We want tools, and we want Airtable. So this one is a search, okay, and make sure you select the correct base and table. Okay, and then for the actual the return, it just returns all, right? You don't need to do anything else. We're just doing a lookup, okay? So what did I call this one? Search records. Oh, in fact, what did I call the other one? Because you can't have a duplicate name, right? This one's search CRM. So let me change that one to search CRM, not search records, because you can't have duplicate names. Okay, so this one, search CRM. And it makes more sense because we would only search the CRM if the client exists, right? So let me just move this out a bit. We'll call this one search records. And that's it. And then the next thing we want to do is we want an update. So let's bring up the Airtable again. This one is now an update. Okay, so let me just grab a few things that I need from here. This one's update notes. So it's going to be set automatically. It's a record, it's an update. We connect to the same table, but this time we're going to match the columns on the email address, okay? Because this system only works with the email address because we're matching the email to the email address, okay? Inside of our Airtable. And then for this, we're just going to use the watch email's email address, right? Just to make sure. It's just like a condition. We just check in this email address inside of Airtable, make sure it matches this one, right? And then everything else stays the same except for prospect notes, which is defined automatically by the model. Because remember, we are telling the model through the system prompt, the system message is, create whatever you think is a suitable response based on the information I'm giving you inside of the get rates Google Docs, okay? So let me just come out of this, we'll connect it up. Just wait for this to load. Not sure why it's taking so long. There you go. And then we're going to match it, but did I set it to automatic or was it manual? Yeah, it's manual, and then we're going to use not the ID, we're going to find the email address, okay? And then for the email address, you just want to put in this JSON field, right? Which is from the watch emails, Gmail trigger. And then for the prospect notes, we're just going to grab it from let the AI model define it automatically. That's purely because there's no output from the AI agent, right? From the email response reply agent, there's no field that I can drag and put into here. So we just do it automatically using the AI. That's all that means, okay? And then what did I call this one? Update notes, because that's what it's doing, right? That's what I've told the AI to do, the AI agent. Okay, and then I'm going to come out of this. Let's just line this up a bit, make it look nice. Just spread it out a bit so you can read it. Makes sense. The next thing we want is the Google Docs, right? So Google Docs tools, if I show you the original, now we're going to look at the rate card, okay? And this is a get, and this you just need, okay? So this one is a get function, and for the URL, it's this one here. So if you go to the address bar inside Chrome, it's basically the long string after /d. Okay, so just grab this. Okay, you put the URL in as well. That's absolutely fine. I'm just going to use the document ID, and then simplify, call it, you know, whatever you leave that on, leave that on by default, because that's what I've done. Or if I have turned it off, I don't think it makes much difference, to be honest with you. I'm just going to leave it there, and we'll call this one get rates. Okay, and if you haven't connected up to your Google Docs, then just set up a credentialed connection. I've actually got a video on this in a previous video that shows you how to do this, so have a look at that if you're not sure. You'll have to set it up once, by the way. So that one's done, and we're just going to line this up. And then the last thing you need is the Apple parser, right? And then I just need some code from the original one. So what are we parsing, right? We asked the AI email reply agent to create a response for the subject line and the email body, right? So now that it's created, we need a way to parse it so that I can use it late in the next node, okay, which is the human in loop step, and then also when I send the email, okay? So I've just given it basic JSON, which is subject, example, body, example. Okay, I mean, these variables, which are subject and body, you can call them whatever you want. Keep it simple and just copy this example that I'm using, and yeah, it should work. Okay, put that in there, and that's it. You don't need to name these connectors, and then just line that up like you see it. Okay, and then going back to the original, we just got a couple more steps to do. 3 more nodes. The first one is human in the loop. So I'm going to do a send and wait. So let's grab that. So let's move over here. Let's bring this down a bit. We'll do Gmail. And it's this send message and wait for response. Okay. So I'm going to call this one human in the loop. Human in the loop. Or you can call it approve email or whatever, right? And then for the values, I'm just going to grab it from here. So the first one is the email address, right? And I've only done this because I'm showing you an example, right? This would be, you would just get the dynamic variable from the client email, which is from the watch emails, right? Or from the prospect or clients node. Okay, I'm just hard coding it because I need to show you it as an example, right? And then subject line could be whatever you want it to be. So I'll just put response to draft, or response draft. And then for the message, it's just going to be the subject, okay, the output, which is what the AI agent has created and what we've passed. And then for the body, it's just the same body, right? Whatever the AI agent has created. Just paste that in there. And then there's a few things we want to do here, okay? So we want to set it to basically approval is the response type is approval, because you saw me doing that. But the approval options are approve and disapprove, right? So we're going to add an option here, and we're going to set this to approve and disapprove, okay? And then everything else you can just leave as default. I haven't changed any of that. And remember to test it. And yeah, that one's done. And then the last thing you want to set up is the send or ignore, okay? And so if I go inside of here, you'll see if the data from the previous node, which is the human in loop, if it's set to true, then it's true, otherwise it's false. Okay, very straightforward. if condition. So we'll just grab that. This is a switch. So again, it's just another rules-based system, right? If it's true, then send the email, right? What did I call this one? Send or ignore, yeah. Send. If you ignore it, then the automation just stops, right? There's nothing more to do in terms of the automation there, automation steps. So we're gonna do this to the result, which is true. It's a Boolean. Okay, so we'll change this to Boolean. Okay, and then we don't need to rename the output. And the next one is false. So we'll do the same again, the same dynamic field, which is from the human in loop step, which is the data one, right? Approved. And if that's, then it's false, and then just leave it at that, right? That's all I've done in here. There's nothing else we need to do. Remember to test the step. And we can move on to the final one, which is now, if I go to here, right, there's a 0 and a 1, right? So if I go to the original, you'll see what that looks like, right? If it's a 0, it means it goes to send email. I mean, you can rename these if you wanted to. I've just left it as it is. If it's a 1, then it's a false, and then it will just stop the automation, okay? So we want to send the email. If I just open this up to Gmail node, and then we're going to send an email this time, okay? So which is a send a message. And then I'm just going to grab the fields here because I already have them. So the first one is the prospect or client. We're going to get the email address, so we have the correct email, and it's a dynamic variable. Okay, so true is that. Okay, subject is the subject email from the email reply agent. Okay, because we passed it, so you should have it as a variable. Mine is red because I haven't run this automation, but you can see on the original one it's green, right? Because I have it. And the subject line is website markup. Okay, and then for the message, we're just going to get the body because we passed that as well. So let's just grab this. Okay. So that's the body of the email, and yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all you need to do. So let's just send. Change this to send email. And remember the test step. Just test it with a dummy email address. Don't send it back to the clients. Whatever you do, right, until you've checked it with the human in the loop step. And that's basically it. That's the automation built, right? So remember, you can add sticky notes and all that. But so a system like this, right, is very influential when you do live calls with clients. When they see something like this, which has 3 AI agents, it's definitely going to help you close and convert these people. Okay, so that's it for the automation today. Thanks for sticking around this long. If you made it this far, if you love the video, please give me a thumbs up. But more importantly, smash that subscribe button and turn your notifications off. Turn them on, not off. And I'll see you when the next video drops. Okay, so take care and have a great day.